Have you ever set a boundary, like you said no, or you took a little bit of space, or you didn't bother to explain yourself, and then right after you did that, you felt guilty? Like your stomach drops, your chest tightens, and your brain immediately starts looking for proof that you did something wrong. And you start thinking things like, was I too harsh? Did I say that the wrong way? Am I being selfish right now? And what's confusing is nobody actually said you did anything wrong. Nothing happened. If you've ever experienced that, I want you to pause right now and I want you to hear this. That guilt you're feeling, it doesn't mean that you did anything wrong. In this video, I want to talk about why that guilt shows up so strongly, especially if you grew up dealing with emotional manipulation, and how we can start to make sense of it instead of turning it against ourselves. I want to be really clear about something before we go any further. I'm not here to tell you you just need to set better boundaries. I'm not here to shame you for struggling with this. I'm definitely not here to push some tough love version of healing. What I want to do is to help you to understand why your body reacts the way it does, so you can stop thinking that there's something wrong with you. Because a lot of us aren't bad at setting boundaries. We're just carrying our old conditioning into new situations. And once we see that, things start to soften. I've seen this play out so many times, and honestly, I've been there too. I remember setting what I thought was a reasonable boundary. Nothing dramatic, nothing confrontational. Then afterwards, I felt so sick to my stomach. I replayed the conversation over and over and over. I wondered if I should follow up with them. I thought about explaining myself again, even though no one asked me to. And what stood up to me was that this guilt just showed up automatically, before I even had time to think. That's when I realized that it wasn't about the boundary itself. This was about what my body had learned a long time ago. Here's what I want you to understand. If you grew up in an environment where love felt conditional, being emotionally close to your friend or your family member or your caregiver, it felt conditional, like you had to jump through hoops to get that feeling of closeness or affection from them. Or if conflict made you feel unsafe, then boundaries won't feel natural. Boundaries feel risky, they feel dangerous. So even now as an adult, you set your boundary and your body might react as if you're doing something dangerous, even when logically you know that you're not. Because your body learned a long time ago that saying no leads to consequences. The consequences don't necessarily have to be yelling or punishment. Sometimes it could be withdrawal, guilt, tension, or being made to feel like you're the problem. So now when you set a boundary, your body goes, oh, this feels weird. I don't know this feeling. This feels so unfamiliar. A lot of us carry this feeling. We learn to read the room, manage other people's experience or their expectations, manage other people's emotions, and anticipate people's reactions. So when we don't do that, when we choose ourselves, guilt shows up like an alarm. Not because we're doing anything wrong, but because we're doing something new. Let me tell you how this showed up in my life. I remember one evening I had just gotten off of a call with someone that I cared about. On the surface, everything sounded normal, but afterwards, I felt this knot in my chest. I kept replaying the conversation over and over in my head. I remember I didn't sleep well that night because of it. I found myself wondering, maybe I said the wrong thing. I should have said this. I wondered if I was being too sensitive, if I was reading into things too much. But it wasn't till later that I realized that this is actually a pattern. I was always feeling like I had to tiptoe around this person. So I found myself questioning myself. The moment that I finally realized this, I felt like a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. I started to notice the signs sooner, and this gave me a little space to breathe, and it allowed me to start trusting myself again. And that is what I want for you too, so that you can start recognizing these patterns in your own life before it drains you. If you're not sure that this applies to you, here are some subtle signs that you might be dealing with emotional manipulation and don't even realize it. You replay conversations in your head over and over, wondering if you said or did something wrong. Or you feel drained after all your conversations with particular people, but you can't quite figure out why. You question yourself constantly, wondering if you're overreacting or if you're too sensitive. You may even feel tense or on edge around certain people, even when they're not being blatantly or overtly aggressive towards you. Or maybe you find yourself thinking, maybe I'm just imagining it. But that feeling is real. Here's why this matters long term. When subtle manipulation goes unnoticed, it doesn't just affect your relationships. It impacts your confidence, your energy, and ultimately how you show up in the world. You might start doubting your decisions, second guessing yourself, or feeling like you're always walking on eggshells. I want you to pause for a second and think about this. Who comes to mind when you hear this? How do you feel after talking to them or being around them? Does your body feel calm? Does it feel tight or tense? You're not imagining it. Your body is trying to give you the clues that you need. Let's think about a family situation for a second. Let's say there's a family event and you say you can't make it. Or you don't want to talk about something. They keep asking you, when are you going to get married and settle down? Or maybe they didn't think it's a good idea for you to quit your teaching job and decide to bet on yourself and start your own business. Even though no one says anything out loud, you still feel that. Feel the pressure. You feel the urge to explain, to smooth things over. Not because you're inconsiderate, but because along the way, you learned that your needs always cause disruption. Your needs disrupted the peace. Your needs made other people uncomfortable. Your decisions not only affected you, but they also affected other people. Other people need to weigh in or agree with your decisions. This is a really important part, what I'm about to say next, so I want you to take your time and really sit with this. Guilt isn't a sign of wrongdoing. It's not always a sign of wrongdoing. Guilt is not always a sign of wrongdoing. Sometimes guilt is just your body reacting to unfamiliar safety. So you're setting a boundary, but because your body isn't used to the feeling that comes with setting a boundary, it starts to feel unsafe and unfamiliar. You start to feel guilty. And when we don't know what to do with that feeling, we assume that it means we messed up. When in reality, it just means I'm changing, I'm doing something new, I'm standing up for myself for the first time. I'm not trying to smooth things over. I'm not managing other people's relationship. I'm setting a boundary and I'm putting myself first. You might also notice this at work too. Maybe you stop being available 24/7. Maybe you stop picking up the slack for everyone else at work. Maybe you stop explaining yourself every time you say no. And then suddenly, you feel uncomfortable, even though the boundary is completely reasonable. Start worrying. What if they're upset? What if I went too far? Maybe I should explain. Did my tone come across too harsh? Was I too abrupt? What if this cost me something? What if I lose my job? Or what if they're talking about me? What if nobody here wants to be my friend? What if I'm left out of the lunch group? What if no one wants to eat lunch with me? That fear is not random. That fear is old and it's something that you've carried with you since you were a child. And here's something that we don't talk about enough. A lot of us were praised for being easy, understanding, low maintenance, helpful, the good girl or the good boy. So boundaries don't just feel uncomfortable. They feel like we're becoming someone else. And that can bring up so many emotions. It can bring up guilt. It can bring up fear. It can even bring up grief all at once. Because we're not just setting a boundary. We're letting go of an old identity that once kept us safe. So here's a question I want you to start asking yourself whenever guilt shows up. Did I actually hurt someone or am I just feeling uncomfortable? Because discomfort is a part of growth. Harming someone is completely different. And learning to tell the difference is going to take some time. It's going to take some practice, but you can get there. If this feels hard for you right now, I want you to understand this. You're not weak, you're not selfish, and you're not failing at setting boundaries. You're unlearning the behaviors that once helped you to survive. You're unlearning all the coping mechanisms that you've had to establish to survive at a much earlier time in your life. And that's not a character flaw by any means, it's just growth. You're growing, you're shedding your old identity and you're stepping into your new identity. We don't go from feeling guilty about our boundaries to being confident overnight. This is something that we have to work at. We have to build the muscle of setting boundaries. We have to build the muscle of being okay after we set the boundaries. We have to build the muscle of being comfortable with the discomfort that we might feel when we set the boundary. So we'll move from guilt to awareness to neutrality. And that's still progress. If you're watching this video and you're thinking, wow, this explains a lot, you're not alone. This channel is all about helping you to understand these patterns so you can stop blaming yourself. Start trusting yourself again. If you want more conversations like this, go ahead and subscribe. I post new videos every Friday, Sunday, and Wednesday. And if this video helped you, please be sure to like it. When you like it, you're helping this video to reach people who are quietly struggling with the same thing that you are. You're allowed to have limits, you're allowed to change, and you don't need permission to protect your peace. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.